welcome back again everyone, glad you can join us again. And as I mentioned last time, we're going to have a look at this Triumph Adventurer. It's a 900 water cooled triple, and it fell over in the garage and went and snapped the end of the gear shaft off. So we're finally getting one gear shaft. Now it says Triumph original part, made in Taiwan. So there you go. Right, so we're going to have a go at fitting that today. Now I've drained the oil and I've got this tray underneath here so that when I take the sump off, this is a big sump, any oil that's dripping is just going to end up in there hopefully. Now we did take this to a dealer and they quoted them a price for changing it, a ridiculous amount. And they were saying that they had to split the casing to do that. Now whether or not they just said to them it's possible that they got to or they had to, I don't know, but I looked online and there's a few people are saying that by taking the sump off you can actually get this out. So I think I'm going to have to take the sump off. I think this side casing's got to come off, this little one here just covering the chain. But anyway, I've drained the oil. I'm going to first of all take the exhausts off, and these look like the aftermarket silencers. I don't think I'm going to have much difficulty trying to get them off, so I'm going to make a start with that. Right, so that's one side off. I'm just going to go around the other side and take the others off. Now there's two front pipes on that side, so it's a little bit more difficult. But on this one, see that's aftermarket exhaust, I think it only goes to one silencer, not the two. Right, I'm going to take this side cover off, but it looks like to get that off, the footrest's got to come off. So we'll take that off first. So once we get this off, there's the clutch, it's a hydraulic clutch on it, so I think that'll come off separate. And then there's half a dozen screws which will take the side cover off. Right, now these are all 8mm. Let's try and crack them off with a ratchet first. And then I can just use my little electric screwdriver. Tends to speed the job up using this. See, two long ones and a short one. Bit stiff, a little mallet. It's coming. Try not to use a screwdriver because there's the side casing here is chrome plated, and I always think it looks bad having screwdriver marks on. That's it. Right, so just leave that there. I'll take them two long bolts with the bolts holding the case on at the front. So there shouldn't be any more underneath there. tighten the extension. Before I thought I'd lost it, little adapter for the sockets. Hopefully that's it. Just want to keep these in some kind of order, so different lengths. 3 short ones and a long one. Another shorter one. Quite a bit gunky in there. You see that? About a ½ inch thick of grease. We'll get that shit cleaned out before we get it back on. Right, I'll show you later, but there's a bolt in there which we need to get to. And I was looking in the manual on the internet, but it's just inside there, the cover. So for right, I'm having to take that off. Right, next thing is try to loosen off all of the bolts underneath the sump. And there's a million of them. And they're these torque screws. That's the one. So again, I'll just crack them off. And then I'll try and go around with me little electric screwdriver and whiz them all out. Right, now to get the sump off, we need to take the filter off because there's a bolt goes right through, so it's from the outside of the sump and it goes into the bottom of the engine there. So we'll just take that off first, try and crack the bolt off. A 17mm spanner. And also, we'll get that off. There is these bolts which go around the side, there's 2 of them underneath, so you've got to make sure you get those 2 as well. And this is where I get covered in oil. So even though I've drained the oil, there's still some down the bottom here. So I'll just leave that in the tray to drain. And see if I can find them other 2 bolts under there. So I've managed to get all the bolts out of there apart from one of them. It's right at the back and the shock goes past it. So there's one of the bolts, on the shock absorber linkage, it's in the way. So I've used a big thick one of these ratchet straps and I've took the weight off the engine. I'm going to try and get the bolt out so that I can get in to the sump bolt. that's it out. Now let's see if we can prise the lever out of here. Yeah. Let's bring it down so you can see what's going on. Right, so I've gotten the bolt out of here, and this is all loose. So I can get up, because the bolt which I need to get at is right underneath there. There's also here some electrical connector. Not sure what it's for, but I'll try and get that out while we've got this open. And this is the other bolt which I was talking about when I do get the sump off. I think that's the one that's got to come out to allow this to turn so that it can then push out. Right, let's see. So I'll see if I can have a look at that electrical connector and see how that comes out. I don't want to force it, otherwise we'll snap it. Right, so I'll just do that first. So I managed to get that off. It's just sort of one of those speared connectors, and it pushes up onto the little connector sticking out, and I think it's probably oil pressure switch, something like that. Right, so the last bolt is at the back here. That's it. I've got the two at the front in just to hold it in place till I got this out. So we'll get these three taken out. Right, that's it. Just tap with the rubber mallet to see if it frees it off. Now you can see on the corners it does have little lugs. I don't know if you can see it there. So there to tap down on to try and release it. Fronts come loose. Now I'm just being careful of the gasket, because may have to use this old gasket again. And typical, it's stuck to the top for part of it and stuck to the bottom on another part of it. So just getting out a feeler gauge. Let's see. Don't want it too thick. You don't want it too thin so it's bending too much. And I'll just go around and try to prise the gasket off so we can see if the gasket. Right, that's it, and I think those are the two holes where the two bolts were coming through from underneath. Right, I'll just put that out the way, oil filter, and then we'll have a look at the gear lever. Now, the bolt is up the top of here. I've got to take that one out, and the shaft, it's got to be turned. I'll just get the other one out the bag, show you what I mean. The shaft can't push out because this piece is hitting, it'll be hitting against the drum where it is. So it's really got to be rotated down so that it can then be pushed out. But I'm not sure if it'll push out. Oh, it might past this bar, this pipe. Mind you, this hasn't got the spring on it. May still come out. We'll give it a try. If I can't get it out, I'll have to take these three bolts off and drop this pipe. But first of all, I've got to take this circlip off here, which is holding it in. I'll just get my circlip pliers. Let's see if these ones will do it. Washer on there. And we need a socket to fit this. bolt out. Now if I use the gear lever, see if that will allow us to rotate this. Right, so I've been looking in the workshop manual, and it's not just that bolt in there which has got to come out. That bolt allows this to rotate because the bolt's in the middle there and it restricts it, so you take it out, it can move further then, can rotate right round. But in the drum, which is under here, which it locks into as it turns, there's a little plate and it stops it turning too far, so I need to take that plate off. Now I can't see it, but it's under here round the back, and there's 2 screws that hold it in, and I think it's a torque screw, so I need one of these to get in there. But to get my hands in this pipe here, I'm going to take that off so I get a bit better access, and there's only 3 bolts holding that in. Well, as you could probably see there, most inaccessible place to get to. I've managed to get 2 little screws out. I'm hoping nothing falls out when I rotate this, but this should now rotate round. Yeah, and the locking collar's actually come loose. I'll not pull it right out, I'll leave it there just in case I can't. And this shaft should push through now. You see, I'm having to use a mirror to try and look underneath. I really should have put the bike onto stands or something so I could get right underneath. Right, now it seems to be catching a little bit. Yeah, it's catching on the casting. So there is a circlip, a Bushner spring in there, which you've got to take off the shaft. I was hoping it would slide out without having to take it off the shaft, and then I could have done that out to here, because getting the circlip underneath there is not going to be easy. But we'll give it a go at taking this one off and see how it goes. Oh, there's the locking plate. So that's what we need to get back on when I've finished. Right, so I'll try and get this circlip off. It's not going to be easy because I'm working blind, I've got to do it that way. Well, it was a bit of an awkward struggle getting up there, but I've got the circlip off. What's worrying me is that it's going to be twice as hard getting everything back on again. Right, so see if I push everything off there. So I've got the sort of a spacer, and the spring goes over there. And hopefully the shaft should come out now. Right, that's it. It's still tight coming out there. There doesn't seem to be any extra washer on there, which I thought there may have been. Right, let's have a look at the new shaft. Hopefully it's the same as that. Yeah, if anything it's a touch longer. But everything else seems in the right place. So that, when it's in there, it goes on there, and they go one either side. So clip here, got room for the circle to go on. spring in the right place either side of the peg sticking out. That's it. Right, and then the circlip back on there. Right, I'm just going to fight with the circlip now. Right, that's it in place. Let's hope it's clipped in there alright. It looks like it's in the groove alright. Right, now try to get this back onto the drum in the right place. Now there's, as you can see, there's 6 teeth on that, and on the drum there's 5 teeth, and they've got to fit in there. So not only have you got to get them in, you've got to make sure you get the centre one right in there so they're all covered. Right, so I'm getting this in, the shaft, I've got it lined up, and the best way I've found without this stop plate, which stops the drum turning, without that in, and without the circlip on this side of this shaft can move in and out, and what happens is that the teeth actually can move apart and move and rotate, so you can rotate at the correct position, then pull it back into place, and that's how to get them lined up. Yeah, so by filling on, I've managed to have the teeth on the drum down here, then get these ones, push it back, move it to get in the right place, then pull it in, so that this tooth on here is just on top of that one, and as you rotate them round, the bottom tooth on the gear shaft is underneath those. So I'm just going to double check I've got in the right place, and then we're going to move on. So next thing is going to be to try and get this plate back in place with 2 screws, and use a little bit of Loctite on those. So I'll try and get this plate in position. Right, it's in the right place there. Right, now for one of the most awkwardest jobs, trying to line these up and get them in the right place. So they're difficult enough to get out, never mind put back in. So I've got the new gear lever shaft in there. I've tried it, it seems to be going through, selecting all the gears alright. It was a bit of a pain, say, getting into the back there, trying to get them screws in from underneath here. I suppose if it had been the summer, I could have taken outside, maybe just laying it down on its side, so you could get better access to it. But it's done now. Right, so putting it back together. First thing, I'm going to put this oil pipe back on. It's got a rubber seal around there, and these fittings held on with these bolts, and they're like a banjo fitting. So I've got to remember to put copper rings or copper washers top and bottom, which is there. So I'll just try and fit that in. Well, I don't know if it's just me, but just looking at the screen on my camera there, it looks like there's a white haze, so I've turned some of the lights down a little bit. Seems strange. Anyhow, give these a nip up. Now, I mentioned when I took it all apart that there was a load of crud inside of this, the chain guard. And it is an awful load of crud in there, I don't see all that. But there's also some around the chain around here. So I'm going to try and clean a little bit of that out before I put things back together. Now there's a hole from this side casing which I took off, which goes through in the engine, so I'm just going to put a plug in there to try and stop some going through. It should just fall out the bottom at the minute, but just to minimise things a bit more. So we don't end up with grit and everything in the engine. But when the cover's on, you kind of clean it out, so you've got to do it while it's off. Right, so that's what I'm getting out of the side chain casing there. So Dave, if you're watching, you asked us to stiffen up your back suspension for pillion and luggage. I don't think we'll need to after we've took that lot off. Right, let's see, next thing. Give that a little bit of a clean to make sure there's no muck around on the gasket surface. Then we'll get the sump on in the side cover. Right, so let's see. Suppose I'll put the sump on next. Yeah, we'll get that on. So there's a sump. I'm going to need to give this a little bit of clean out. Well, I've got a new filter to go on. Let's put that on one side. So, oh, that's something I was going to look at. The oil strainer, which is in the bottom of the sump here. So I'm going to try and take that out and just give it a once over, make sure that it's not blocked at all. I'm not expecting it to be, it's pretty clean here. I forget how many miles the bike's done, but it hasn't done a great deal. You know, we'll pop that off and have a look at it. I'm glad I took that off. You can see all that in the strainer. It looks mainly like gasket paste. We'll take that out, and I'm going to give the whole sump inside a good clean. So that's the filter cleaned out. It had loads of gasket sealant in it, and looking at the engine, it looks like the rocker cover has been, or the shaft cover has been off at some time. There seems to be a lot of black instant gasket type of stuff there, so I think that's where it is, which has ended up in here. It's done 27,000 miles the bike, so it probably has had some work done to it, but I'd hate to think that that's what came out of the factory. You know, just pop this back into place. Dave's also supplied us with a new drain plug. It's one of the magnetic types, so that'd be handy. So I'm going to fit that now before I put the sump on. I haven't tightened the bolt up too tight. I think it's a 17mm. Yeah. It's got the copper washer to go with it. Now I think what I'll do, thumbs go off me glove, is put a little bit of blue Hylamar on the washer, just to make sure we don't get any oil leaks. Nothing worse than having a dripping oil plug, and then you think, well, I've just replaced all the oil. You're either going to lose all the oil out of it, or by dripping away gradually, or when you change the oil you're going to end up losing some oil. Or should I say, instead of changing the oil, when you if you decide to drop the oil so that you can then seal up this washer properly and put the oil back in, there's always a danger of getting muck in it, or you're losing half of it. Oops. Right, so it's a little smearing of gasket paste around there. Yeah, it's going alright, just a little bit stiff. Not a bad thing, if it came loose it's not going to fall out as easy. There's the oil pressure switch which I mentioned earlier when we took it apart. What to take the connection off there. So remember to put it back on when we assemble it. Right, so I'm going to just clean this gasket off a little bit. Put a little smidgen of blue Hylamar on it. I'm not going to go mad with it, not like they have with a, looks like the rocker cover gasket. You just want a tiny little bit so that it's filling up any little imperfections, any little gaps. You don't want loads of it, otherwise it's going to be squelching out like, you know, jam coming out your sandwich. It'll only end up in the sump. Right, so I'll just do that and then we'll get the sump back on. Right, so I've given it a smearing of gasket paste on there, and where the oil filter fits in here, there's an O-ring. So I've just used a little bit of paste just to hold that in place so it's in the little recess in the top so it doesn't drop out. Now when I put the sump on, if you can remember, there was 2 bolts right in the middle, and that's these 2, and they're a little bit longer than the rest, so put them to one side and they'll go in last. So I'll just try and get a few bolts in here. Let's see if we can get this lined up. Right, so sump's all nipped up now, and I'll put the little wire on the back for the oil pressure switch. Next thing is putting the filter on, so changing the oil filter, and go here, got a new one, and also comes with these rubber O-seal kit which Dave supplied. So one of them goes round there, the big one. The small one which comes with it has got to go onto here. So normally just use a little terminal screwdriver and try to get underneath it. And take that one off. slide that off, and we'll just give it a quick try to make sure it looks the right size, the same as the new one looks the same as the old one, yeah. And we'll try to put that on. Right down and into the groove. So that's got to go into there. There's a spring which goes on top, and then the filter goes on top of there. Nice tight snug fit. Right, and that can go underneath. Right, next thing is the side casing, so we can put this back on now. And round the bottom here is where the oil weight is. So I'll clean up this and put just a smidgen of gasket sealant round there. Right, so we can get this into place. Now we'll have to get round that clutch piston as well, and onto there. And then we'll get the sleeve sewn down. I'll try and get a few bolts in here. I've kept these in order, so it should go in alright. Right, I'll not put the gear lever on yet until I get the foot peg on, so I can see whereabouts exactly to put it. But before I go any further and put exhausts or anything on, I'm going to top the oil up. Got some fresh Silkaline oil, so I'll top the oil up, and then that'll check if there's any oil leaks in the sump anywhere. It may show up there before we get everything else put back together. So I'm just going to top that up. I'll check. I think it's about 3.5 to 4 litres it takes. It's about 3.5 that's came out. It's a 4 litre tub, so I'll get that done. Right, so put the oil in. Doesn't seem to be any leaks, so it's a good sign. And on the gaskets there, because it does actually go above the line of this gasket here. There's one of those holes, that lens where you look through to check the oil level, so, and it's above that gasket's face, so it seems okay. Now I was going to connect the rear shock mechanism back up again, but I've decided to leave it because one of the things he wants us to do is adjust the shock height right the way down, and rather than trying to get in there somewhere to do it, which I think is going to be almost impossible with the C-spanners, while I've got this loose here, I've only got to take the bolt out the top, and then I can drop the whole shock out the bottom, and it might be easier to adjust it like that than fit it back in. So we'll just put the foot peg back on, and the same with the exhausts. I'm not going to fit the exhausts back on yet until we get the shock done. We'll just knit these two up, and then I'll set the gear lever at what I think is going to be the right height. The strange thing as well, two different size Allen key bolts in the pegs. You'd think they would have made them both the same size. Never mind. Right, gear lever. So I'm going to set it roughly in line with the foot peg. I don't want it there. It's going to be too high. I'll put it there for now, and then we'll try it out. And Dave tries it out. We'll see what height it's at. Forgetting one thing. Right, the gear lever has been the problem with these. When it falls over, must push or pull, whichever way you fall, and it snaps the end of this shaft off. So what I've heard people do when I was looking on the forum is, they're saying halfway along here, to put a saw mark halfway through. The only thing with that is I think it won't look very nice if you've got a little saw mark on here. So what I've okayed it with Dave is that I'm going to drill a hole in here, in the back of it, about half the width of that, and not quite right the way through. So that's going to act as a weak point. So normal riding should be okay, but if the bike falls over, it's going to snap there. And then it's a case of, I don't know what these are, £20 or something for a gear lever, an easy fix rather than having to do this whole process again and change the shaft. So I'm going to drill the hole in that. Right, seems okay. Right, okay, well thanks very much for watching again everyone. So that's how you change gear lever shaft on a Triumph Triple. Next time I think I'm going to be doing the fork seals and having a look at this back shock, so I can take that out and adjust it, and then I'll put the exhaust and everything back on. And there might be a couple of bits and pieces to do. He wants us to get ready for an MOT for him. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and until I see you next time, stay safe.